This is Wrestle Wolf. I am Damian Gibson, and this is our AEW review. And joining me, as always, is the enigma, the mystery. It's Matthew.
Hello. I'm extremely excited to be here on an episode of Dynamite that follows 3 pay-per-view quality episodes, and I thought it was gonna the card going in was quite underwhelming, and it turned out to be a really, really good episode.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't want to say that I'm Nostradamus, like wrestling's Nostradamus, but I did say at the end of last week's episode that these are the episodes of Dynamite that tend to be really, really good when you don't sort of, I don't know whether that's just because I don't have any expectations compared to the last 3 weeks, but
I'm just glad to see that you're really changing your persona for the listening audience, and you're really trying to be humble rather than the messages you send, which are like, as wrestling Jesus.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We got a positive comment on YouTube today, man. So I'm kind of feeling like wrestling Jesus. You know what I mean? I feel like it's only a matter of time. Like, all the English Adams are going to have to get out of the way because here come Damo and Matt.
I'm glad I'm still on board. I feel like this is going to be like a Fleetwood Mac scenario where things just start to go really, really bad, really, really quickly.
Well, as long as we don't start dating each other, then it's not a Fleetwood Mac scenario.
And we'll update audiences weekly.
We'll let you know. All right, let's get into this because there's a lot happened in 2 hours. It feels like a much longer show in a good way. My English is terrible. I don't know what's going on. This is what happens when we record on a school night. Both of us are just frazzled. Cody had the first match was Cody's open challenge, and Eddie Kingston from NWA was the challenger. Cody came out first. There was a little bit of a Justin. I always forget his surname. Justin Roberts, right?
Yep.
Why do I do that every week? I was about to announce Eddie Kingston, and he just came out and basically cut a promo that was. He was on fire.
Well, given that we are watching WCW, and the people in the people in the ring with like Arn Anderson standing there, this was a very Arn Anderson promo.
The one that Eddie Kingston did.
Yeah. Like, this is like, I am tough as shit, and like, you're a little golden boy, and I'm going to punch you until you explode.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that. And he also kind of like, it was a introduction into who this guy was, because I mean, the majority of people who are watching AEW, they're not going to, there's going to be a crossover of maybe 50% of people who've watched NWA at some point, but even then, Eddie Kingston isn't on it all the time, so it was good to have him sort of introduce himself in this way as a character. Like, this is who I am. You've grown up with a silver spoon in your mouth, while, I was the complete opposite.
And I actually think the commentators did a really good job. Even JR during this match in really sort of drilling in, like, this guy wants this because like he had to borrow these boots, like he had to sell his old boots to make rent, like this is to make his mortgage, like this is a real thing for this guy. And like also coming out and saying like, okay, I want it to be no disqualification, the way he did it, making Cody accept, sort of pushes the Cody story further. But also, like, I was like, this is just going to be like people getting hit with belts and chairs. And they had a really good match that slowly escalated. Like, this is what non-crazy ECW spot fest, which we might get to a bit later, like no disqualification is. It was really good.
Yeah, it told a really good story from a character standpoint. That Eddie Kingston is essentially this kind of wild dog of a wrestler, and putting Cody on the spot, and then Cody still is a face, even though there's some heelish tendencies happening from time to time. He accepted, because that's what faces do. And then immediately, or almost immediately, Eddie Kingston went outside, ripped up the mats, and DDT'd Cody's skull into the concrete.
And they had a match about it. It was great. Like it was a deeply enjoyable. Like there was never. I think last with against Sunny Kiss, there was a couple of times where I was like, oh shit, they're gonna pull the trigger. I didn't think that with Eddie Kingston.
No,
But
I didn't feel that. No,
it did really solidly start to feel like the Cody story they're telling, as with literally every story Cody's involved in, it seems, is extremely deep, extremely well told, and a little bit better than anything else in wrestling story wise.
yeah. Well, it's especially. I mean, it's a serial, isn't it? Like, there's an overarching story of like, is he going to turn heel or not? Him and Arn, but it's very subtle. It's very deft. Um, it's not in your face. And then there's the weekly kind of story of, it's almost like monster of the week type thing. Like, who does Cody have to fight this week? Um,
And I
and
think the
that create. Sorry, Ben, you go.
Oh, I think the good thing about it is that it's not when he does turn heel, which he almost certainly will at some stage in throughout the rest of his career. It's not going to be a swerve. It's not going to be like, oh my god, Cody Rhodes just hit the Young Bucks with a chair, and now he's evil. And like, it doesn't really make sense that he is, but isn't it shocking? Like, it's going to be like, I knew this was coming, and he's done it, and it adds so much more like pathos. It's such good storytelling.
Yeah, and uh, I assumed that it was a spot that Kingston hurt his knee early on in the match, and if it wasn't, if it was a legitimate injury, man, they worked it into the match well. Like, if Cody was calling audibles in that match based on Kingston hurting his knee, that's pretty amazing, because the whole match basically centered on the only way that really Cody could get back into the match and eventually get Kingston to submit was by using the figure four, concentrating on his knee.
Which very much goes into other people in the past who might have been part of other groups that used the figure four.
Exactly. Although I don't know whether it was Tony or Jim that said it was shades of his dad using figure four. Did Dusty use the figure four? I know it was a lot more prevalent then, but I always associated that with Rick.
We should maybe at some point do some special episodes of old Starcades and find out ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I watched one recently and it didn't stand out to me. But then, I don't know, the wrestling's so different. I don't know. So anyway, Cody got the win, and I'm really enjoying. Like, I think I said at the beginning of the TNT title run, the open challenge thing, I was like, as long as this doesn't go on forever, I'll be happy with it. But I'm kind of quite happy with the way it's going from week to week. Like, I think it's a really good way to introduce, especially when it's a new wrestler. Like, I really enjoyed the Ricky Starks. I mean, I'm a little bit biased because both these guys are NWA guys, but I really enjoyed the Ricky Starks match, and I really enjoyed this Eddie Kingston match as well. And if I'm being completely honest, Eddie was not one of my favorite guys on NWA.
Yes.
I actually kind of found him a little annoying. But this was tempered. This wasn't like, I kind of sympathized with him. So
I thought it was really great.
I liked all of it. Now, I'm really interested in this next little segment because you were not happy with... Well, neither of us really were that happy with the way that the Cage and Mox story was told last week, the end of Fight for the Fallen. And I feel like they kind of conveniently wrapped everything up. And I don't know whether it was on the fly or whether this has been their plan all along. But with Tony Khan, it sort of feels like it's their plan all along. Where Mox essentially said, cage, Taz did the right thing because I was so close to ripping your arm off your body again. And then the next time I get you, I'm going to do it for real. And I was just wondering whether you were like that put you at ease that Cage wasn't going to be banished to, mid-card land.
Well, this episode is going to be. I'm not 100% sure I have an answer for that because I'm not comfortable yet. I won't be comfortable until Brian Cage is AEW World Champion and relinquishes it at his death at 92. But
Right.
I took 2 notes during this Mox promo, and this episode of our podcast will be a story arc for me, because my notes were great. We get to listen to Mox rambling backstage, and why not get Mox a manager so he can just go full Brock and not even bother to turn up? And I don't want to say anything more until we get further into the episode.
Well, next up we had MJF, who I feel like is just sort of quietly. He's on a dull boil. Is probably the best way to describe him at the moment. They're really building up this undefeated storyline. He hasn't been pinned or submitted, even though So he came out and he had a match with Griff Garrison. That feels like an old school wrestling name.
And if you've been watching Being the Elite, which I don't particularly love, but there's been a running joke of people thinking he's Jungle Boy and then saying, "Who the fuck is Griff Garrison?"
Yeah,
that's the joke.
Yeah. Well, that was my first note, was that MJF has nicked. No, it's all good, man. It means we're on the same page. I was just like, MJF has nicked a gimmick from Colt Cabana. Like, I hope they've spoken to each other about that. I kind of feel like Colt did it better on BTE this week, to be honest. But anyway,
yes,
I love MJF, but
MJF at the moment, like to belabor your analogy of him sort of being on a light sort of a simmer.
Yes.
He's sort of like, at the moment, he is the Golden State Warriors before they won the title, where it's like, yeah, they're great. They're insanely enjoyable to watch. They're destroying everyone. But can they transcend into the next level? And I think much like the Golden State Warriors, MJF will get there, but not win as many as everyone thought and be deeply disappointing in the... No, I think he'll be fine.
I think he'll be...
I think he's about as close to a sure thing as...
100%. From their younger wrestlers, 100%. And what I really did like about this is that... because essentially Griff brought up the fact that he lost a tag team match at Fyter Fest, which MJF went ballistic, punched him in the head with the mic, or basically just smacked the mic across Garrison's head, and then tortured Garrison essentially until Garrison admitted that no, you haven't submitted, or you're undefeated essentially. And I like this because MJF is so... cool's not the right word, but he's so
calm and arrogant.
He's so good at being a heel. He's over with everyone. Everyone loves him, right? So like, he's in that difficult position. Like, he's the heel, so he has to... doing stuff like this reminds people, oh yeah, that's right, I hate MJF, and it's very difficult when he just gets out on the mic and does his MJF thing. I love it so much. It's like, I want him to beat the face. Like, it doesn't matter who it is, I want him to win, So seeing him do stuff like this, and I've got to say, Garrison sold really well.
Yeah,
like, there were a couple of times where it was like, oh man, sounds like he's genuinely in pain.
Well, like I sort of thought it was nice to see him sort of react with actual anger, not just like contempt and arrogance.
Yeah.
And it's probably the first time since the Cody feud that he's really sort of engaged in that way.
Yeah, and it also shows that he's got gears as well, right? Like, I mean, we've seen him be a face, and he was quite good at that. And then we've sort of seen him be this very nasty heel, and then also can be sort of a kind of comedic heel as well. So
Yeah.
I just think the nasty heel needs to come out a bit more, just so people are reminded, like, this is one of the top heels on the company, and that's what I really liked about this. I suppose it was a match, kind of. Really, it was more of a segment than a match.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go, man.
But he looked great in the ring. MJF did.
Yeah. No, he's a really good wrestler, but at the moment he's not really doing matches that, you know, show off everything that he can do, because they're kind of glorified squash matches, really.
Yeah.
But because there's a reason for them, I'm not like, oh my god, this is the most boring thing on the face of the planet. And I also, like, it's enjoyable to see someone who isn't a Vince monster winning squash matches.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. And that probably doesn't get pointed out enough, that, like, you can do dominant heels that aren't just like massive dudes.
Yeah, because, like, especially at AEW, because their storylines, or a lot of storylines, revert on wins and losses, right? Like, not as much as when they first started, but they still talk about it a lot. Rankings are talked about a lot. So when you have a win streak like this, eventually, from a storyline point of view, MJF has to get a title shot, whatever title that is.
Yeah,
doesn't really matter, but he can go to either Cody or Mox or whoever, or Brian Cage. Maybe you could challenge for the FTW belt.
No point. Don't want to get yourself a loss. It would be great if he beat Cody, and that was the catalyst for Cody just absolutely losing his shit.
Yeah, it would be great. You really want to see Cody as a heel, don't you?
I just think
it's like the fourth time you've mentioned in this episode.
he's exceptionally rich, has a great looking wife, is great looking himself, is exceptionally good in the ring, is exceptional on the mic. You shouldn't be that good and a face.
Is friends with Stephen Amell, who played the Green Arrow in DC's Arrowverse.
Oh, I don't care about that. That's irrelevant to me.
Me either.
I was like, that's a surprising thing for Damian to be interested in.
No.
Tune in on Tuesdays for the Arrow podcast.
If I knew anyone who was sad enough to do one with me, I would, like, from the beginning as well.
But just discuss, like, I wonder what, like, Cody thought about that when he saw his friend get punched. Even though it's a show, like, it looked like a brutal punch, and it would be, like, hard to see your friend get hurt like that.
Cody has, I can't remember the name of the character that he played. It is a relatively sort of mid-level DC villain, but he's been on Arrow and Flash quite often.
That is something I didn't know. But if we're talking about Cody, that probably means we need to move on from this MJF match.
We just love Cody. All I was going to say is that wrestlers are huge. Like, when you see him in a TV show against, like, normal people, like against the heroes in DC, he's like a foot taller than them. You're like, yeah, all wrestlers are huge.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yep.
Coming up next, we had a Britt Baker promo where basically she was saying never count out a role model, and that she'll show all of us at All Out.
I thought it was incredible. I thought bringing up Michael Jordan and the Washington Wizards was unbelievable. I thought, like, there were two actual quotes that I paused so I could type out, which were Tony Khan, Tony Schiavone, referencing, like, Michael Jordan had better comebacks than the Washington Wizards, and she's just like, why are you being such an asshole, Tony? And then when she tells Tony and Rebel to stand up straight and suck it in, and Tony does, like, you can just see all you see is his stomach in the corner, and it's a
Yeah,
Just
Tony
fantastic.
Tony is fantastic, especially in these Britt Baker promos, because he's been around for so long. He knows what's going on. Like he knows what he's doing. It's just
Yeah.
when if I was his teacher and his report card, it'd be like, Tony's a great student, and when he applies himself, he's fantastic, but he does get led astray really easily by the bad boy
Yeah, he hangs out with
JR.
the bad kid of the class.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I love how Britt Baker looks worse from this little sort of brush of the hand, like her broken nose, her face. Like she's had facial reconstruction surgery from this. Like she's got black eyes and her nose has been set, and the bit where they showed Britt having reconstruct like facial reconstruction surgery, like that's happened in the last 2 weeks, and like she's back. You know what I mean? Like if people were like that's not legit, right?
No, it doesn't look like it.
No, I was going to say you went silent for a second. I was like, hang on, am I just like hanging myself out to dry here? And she's been in hospital and is already back.
Have some respect, please, Damien, for our role model.
Yeah. Hey, I was going to say, and I try not to talk about these guys anymore on the AEW podcast, but have you heard what Sasha and Bailey have started calling themselves since House of the Horror House? The Horror House?
Extreme Rules, semicolon, horror shows, semicolon, live on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
No. Yes,
They've
role
started,
models, I'm assuming.
yeah, the golden role models.
Well, that's like a weird, the golden lovers / role model steal.
But there's
Rip-off.
someone like that's gimmick infringement, right? Like that's legitimately, like, you're not even trying to, just because you stick golden at the front of it doesn't mean that you're not nicking someone's gimmick.
No, absolutely not.
From now on, I'm Golden Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's my name. I put golden at the front of it.
Are you gonna steal the gimmick as well?
Oh, hell yeah. That's the worst Steve Austin ever of all time. Let's move on. Now, this is, I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on the next segment. I'm really excited about this story direction. Of course, I'm talking about Brian Cage and Taz and their new partner in crime, Ricky Starks.
I was initially slightly concerned that this was going to be a move to start moving Cage to tag, or a sort of really heavy C story. I think that like Cage versus Darby will be an ace match, and I also think that Starks versus Darby will be an ace match. Like, I think Cage is so agile for a guy his size and can wrestle so well. It'll be great to see him with someone that is a bit more throw aroundable than Mox.
Yeah.
And that is also high up enough on the card to get in his own offense and all that kind of stuff. My only concern with this, and I thought this whole segment was really good, except for Darby's blaming Cage for his injury, but my memory of that injury was that Darby Allin literally just threw himself through a ladder. And now he's like, Brian Cage won the match in which I got injured. But he was jumping onto Frankie Kazarian on a skateboard from the top of the ladder, which isn't wrestling.
Yeah, but wasn't there some shenanigans when Cage, because Cage was the last one to come out, and then he cleared house, and I'm pretty sure he hurt, kayfabe hurt Allen then, because he essentially killed everyone in the ring.
Yeah, that's true. I honestly can't remember, but I think most sensible people's takeaway from that match is Darby Allin leaping through the ladder, and basically being out for the whole match.
Yeah.
Like, if Brian Cage did something, he did it after Darby had already injured himself beyond repair.
Well, just for the guys who do listen to the podcast for recap, just briefly, Brian and Taz come out. Taz talks about how Brian almost fired him during the week, but cooler heads prevailed, and that he stands by his decision. And it was a business decision because if he didn't throw in the towel, Brian Cage would be injured, and he was not going to let that happen, and it'll never happen. Brian Cage will never be in that position again. And I kind of felt with that promo of Taz's that sort of tied everything. For anyone who an idiot like me that was like, what? Like last week, this sort of with Mox's promo and Taz's promo, it's kind of tied everything together of like, they've done a pretty good spit and polish job on the end of last week, just to, if anyone was still like grrr about it, I feel like they've done a pretty good job of going, well, that's what the story was.
Yep, I think it was good. I think it carried on. I think having Mox come out to defend Darby sort of potentially means that there's further to go in Cage Mox and Darby Ricky has, and that has like absolute legs, because like part of the problem with Darby is that when he's in the ring with an adult, he really looks small.
Yeah.
Like not Rey Mysterio small, where it's like, oh, that short guy who's like unbelievably muscular, he looks small. He looks underdeveloped.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, or even compared to Ricky Starks, like I keep sort of thinking that Ricky Starks is quite small, but then when you see, compared to Brian Cage, he is. But when you see him like against Darby Allin, he looks huge. So, me personally, I'm just super happy that Ricky Starks. I think they've found a way to put Ricky Starks into what the program was going to be anyway. Like they've got this program, Mox and Darby Allin, Brian Cage. We've got Ricky Starks here now. We want to put him in the spotlight. This is a perfect way to do it. And he can also be sort of guided by three. I mean, Darby Allin isn't probably that much more experienced than Ricky Starks, but he can be guided. He's got Cage and Mox there to guide him through a main event program on a national TV show. I think it's really cool, and there are so many different ways. These four essentially can feud for the rest of the year.
Oh, absolutely, and it would be like there are. Yeah, it'll just be fascinating. It'll be great. It'll be so much fun. Like even like next week, I don't want to jump too far because I do want to
We'll
go
get to
through,
that.
obviously. But there'll be a tornado tag with the four of them, which is going to be cool.
Yeah, I'm genuinely excited about this program.
Yeah.
Next up, we had the announcement of the women's tag tourney that's coming up. Now, I'll just say it. I think that I think this whole tournament is so that Brandy can win a championship belt.
Yep, I think that's 100% because they have not given a lot of story time to many of the women, let alone I don't think there's any cohesive female tag teams except for the Nightmare Sisters. So unless they're trying to like pitch them as the Young Bucks tag team tournament style, where they're going to lose first round to put over two random people that no one's ever heard of and they've not done any video promos for or anything, I suspect they might win.
Yeah, immediately, like almost 12 seconds into the promo, I was like, oh, no. No, this is so obvious. It's so obvious. Like, it's not, and just sort of quickly checking some wrestling sort of forums and discords and stuff that I'm in, the opinion is 100% with us. Every single person. And these AEW fans are like, this feels like a misstep. I mean, we sort of say this every week that we need to probably have a bit of faith in TK and the Elite, because they haven't really let us down with too many
I
things.
think it's
Even if they do make a
relatively,
mistake, they tend to fix it up. But do they even have? I mean, that was the major conversation going on in the forums. They didn't even have enough women on the roster to have a 8-team tournament. But they've got to find 16 women wrestlers to to wrestle.
Well, we'll see.
Not including Hikaru, because you assume that she wouldn't be in the tournament, right? Because she's unless we're going old school, where the champion decides that she wants the tag team belts as well.
I mean, if Bailey and Sasha are the golden lovers, sorry, the golden role models, maybe they're gonna give Sheeta the tag belt as well and get her Sheeta 2 belts.
Hikaru, man, Hikaru 2 belts. Anyway, look, I mean, I really enjoy. I've said a few times that I think the basis of what they have in the women's side of the roster is not as bad as a lot of people make out, especially the WWE fanboys who are like, they don't have any female wrestlers. I think that's being quite harsh. There's a lot of wrestlers that can't get to AEW at the moment because they're in England or they're in Australia or they're in Japan. So once that eases a little bit, that will help. But the problem with that is that this tournament, they said, starts in 2 weeks. Is that right?
Yep.
So they did introduce some sort of newer talent later on in the night, though. So maybe they're going to sort of rush that in. Dark will be an all-female affair next week.
It'd just be nice if we occasionally got even if we got a Eddie Kingston style opening promo to a women's match, or a video package or something to give some personality to anyone.
Yeah, well, sort of every time they do that, it's almost like a marketing video. It's like, the sort of things that I'll get shown at my job, where it's like, where they're trying to sell an idea to the staff. That's what this sort of promo felt like. It was like, even the way that I think it was Brandy doing the voiceover was like, AEW has a fantastic women's division, and then showing shots of like the 4 female wrestlers they have on the roster at the moment. Look, I know that AEW will do well with their women's division. I don't think they don't come across as the type of people who will just ignore that side of the division. I don't think, but I agree with you. It would be nice to see, just with one of the new girls that comes along, come out and do a promo. So we get introduced to a new character. I mean, it's 2 minutes of TV time.
Yeah.
You could literally take 40 seconds of Jericho going, I'm crazy. Actually, don't get rid of that. I love that.
We actually have seamlessly transitioned to the next bit, which was completely meaningless, but just he's funny, not wrestling funny.
Chris.
Yeah.
This promo reminded me of sort of 80s. We've started doing the WCW podcast, and there's a lot of this, but it's also on WWF as well, of like 4 giant dudes standing around a little guy just trying to do his job, and they tease him and they tease the faces, and but they're genuinely entertaining. And the amount of, like, not only is Chris funny, but the amount of like story work that he's doing in like a 2-minute segment is masterful. Like, he's reminding you of the Orange Cassidy feud. He's also like, and Lucha Express, like, by the way, kids, Luchasaurus isn't even a real dinosaur. So, things like that, where it's like they're feuding with almost everyone on the roster. And he just pops up, like they just pop up. You could tell that it's Alex Marvez, right? That was doing the interview.
Yeah.
He broke Like, he broke at one point in the interview. I was watching Jake Hager in the background, who was doing everything he possibly could to not break throughout the promo. Santana and Ortiz were doing a better job of keeping a straight face, but it must be hard when you're working with Jericho to not, and he's in as good a form as this, to not just piss yourself laughing.
It would be nearly impossible for me, I think.
Yeah. Next up, we had a match that I had no real feelings about going into it, and afterwards was completely blown away by a ridiculous, awesome brawl, no, like, falls count anywhere match between the Young Bucks and It's Us, Butcher and the Blade.
All I've ever, since watching this, I've just been like, I can't wait to see how much you enjoyed this.
I loved it.
I
loved every second of it.
It opens with them, the Young Bucks, going to find them, and they're in the cool room butchering.
Yeah, well, dude, they're butchers. So, one, JR, they're not fucking bakers. They're butchers. Look, they're doing it again. They're cutting up meat. And then, like, they start fighting. The match is on. Matt Jackson did this bit where, like, he went to, like, jump over this sort of, stainless steel table, kitchen type table, but they had not put the locks on the wheels. So the table started moving away, and Matt, like, moved his body in midair to stop himself from falling. Like, if you go back and watch, it's right at the beginning of the match. It's amazing athletic ability. Like, cat-like. I don't want to sound like JR, but it was cat-like, the way that he did it. Then you had, like, Nick using, like, stakes to, like, hit Butcher and the Blade with. He did, like, the only way I can describe it is like a breakdance flip or Ninja Turtles flip over the Butcher to, like, do a DDT. This is just the first 5 minutes of this match.
This isn't even taking into account when the Young Bucks rock up into their workplace, apparently, because when they're not, like, the Butcher and the Blade aren't like, we're ready to wrestle. They're like, stop, we need to put our tape on and stuff.
That's true. Yeah, like, what?
I wrote down
2 jobs. So when they're not stealing FTR's truck, they're just off in the. Do they do all the catering?
Well, this is in the COVID era. It's not like they're catering for the audience. They're not like, providing meat for hot dogs or whatever. They're just like, I wrote down, and I couldn't believe it. But as this sort of, the early on, I was like, I want the Butcher and the Blade to win this. They're like, they are first ballot Hall of Famers as of this point right now.
Yeah.
They're one of the best things in AEW, and they shouldn't be.
No. Well, no. Yeah. No, you're right. This match just completely caught me by surprise. I didn't expect this to be what it was. And it was essentially kind of like a cross between that the Stadium Stampede match and then the sort of, like, lead-in match of Kenny and Matt versus Jericho and Sammy Guevara the week before in the go home match. It felt very much like that, but I wasn't expecting it. It wasn't really sort of promoted or anything. So it made me just love this even more. And then when you had the Bucks in being able to use anything, I mean, watching the Bucks in a match like this, doing the things that they were doing, I think this is the moment where I was like, oh, I get it. I get the Young Bucks now. Like, I still think they should be heels because they're just, they're just those kind of, like, they're just those kind of guys. But in this match, like, this was so fun. Like, there were so many spots that were amazing. The ending spots where both of them, jumping off the entrance tunnels onto Butcher and the Blade, who were on tables, and it looked like a 20-foot drop for both of them. I can barely speak. I loved this match so much.
It was terrific. It was probably the best match of the episode, and something I want to see
Yeah, it's my
again.
favorite.
It was spectacular. It shouldn't have been. It was.
Yeah,
And
just one of those sort of. Sorry, man, you go.
if they can do that for matches that even hardcore fans like us are like, and then they turn out to be that good, then that's an exceptionally good sign for AEW.
Yeah, well, I mean, it feels like I'm being like a spoiled brat because I know the young bucks, the young bucks, the young bucks, the young bucks are good. Like I know that intellectually, but I haven't. My heart hasn't been in any of their matches yet. I mean, yes, there was the match with Hangman and Kenny, and objectively, I could look at that match and go, Jesus Christ, that's a really good wrestling match. But I didn't really care who won. And for some reason, you know what it was? It was because there was a sense of humor in this match. And as much as the Bucks paint themselves, like I've heard them interviewed where they talk about like BTE and they're like, oh yeah, we just write sketches. I mean, we're not just wrestlers, we're also comedy writers. Like, oh God, no. But like they're not quite that bad, but essentially that's how it comes across. But this match had a sense of humor about it, but also was a really good, fun, no DQ falls count anywhere match. And I haven't seen AEW have done a few that I've really, really enjoyed, but you don't see them very often. The competition doesn't do a great job of them.
No.
And it really reminded me of because WWF used to be great at them. There seemed to be like Mankind and Undertaker and those kind of things like in the boiler room. It reminded me of that sort of ridiculousness.
It was Big
grew up
Show
on.
walking into the boiler room and Mankind being there.
Yeah.
Like, it was just terrific. Like, it didn't take itself too seriously. It was self-referential, but also, like, fun. It was a spot fest, but in a way that, like, it doesn't hurt either of these teams to be like, yeah, they're the, like, it doesn't make the Butcher, like, the Butcher and the Blade aren't like it would hurt John Moxley to be in a, why is he just standing around waiting for them to hit that move kind of match? It doesn't hurt the Butcher and the Blade. They're butchering. This is actually their second job. Like, this is just like they're just driving Uber.
Yeah.
And like,
they got interrupted at work.
Yeah, they have a full-time job.
Their other job. And that's kayfabe now. Like, Butcher and the Blade are butchers that butcher meat in the bowels of Jaguars Stadium.
And it's great.
Yeah. More of that, please. Next up we had, and I really enjoyed this as well. Like, I genuinely, God, I'm such a fanboy, but I loved everything on this show. Alex Marvez, who's been very busy tonight, is just sort of wandering around looking for an interview and finds Lance Archer and Jake the Snake Roberts and basically is like, hey, what's up? Like, what's going on with you guys? And Jake sort of does a bit of an evil laugh. And then Lance Archer goes into one of the locker rooms and beats up about 6 dudes, 6 jobbers.
What an exceptionally different and cool way to do a promo where Jake is talking. You don't see Jake. It's just his voice as Lance Archer is just dominating a series of people. It's great.
I loved it.
It's so different.
I really loved it. And it made it, like, we've talked at length over the last sort of month almost of like how uninterested both of us are in Lance Archer. The moment where he grabbed one of the dudes and threw him into the roof.
That was like, so cool.
I was like, okay, all right. Like, yeah. Okay, he wants to call himself a murder hawk. All right, you're the murder hawk. You're the murder hawk.
It was one of the. I still need to see him. I still need to see him kill someone. But the doing something like that, I was just like, this is insanely cool. I was sort of expecting the next challenger to him to sort of pop out. But that's okay.
No, I thought it was better for that to not happen. Just because it's too convenient. It's all of a sudden, like if all of a sudden, I don't know. I can't think of it.
I mean, what you're saying is it would be too storytelling-y and too like fake after we just witnessed a match in which it started
no, I know. No, you're right. But I just felt, God, it sounds so stupid. I just felt that the way they did this promo was great. Like he looked like a badass, and then off they go into the night, and if you can find a couple more creative ways of don't do the same thing, because I get worried, especially with the competition. Once they hear some sort of form of once they get a pat on the back, they do that 9 weeks in a row. It's like, oh, you liked Seth Rollins doing this? Okay, well, here's Seth Rollins doing that thing that you love. I don't want to see that. I don't want to just see Lance Archer beating up rooms of people. Now, unless it gets more ridiculous every week and he's beating up different types of rooms of people, like a funeral next week or a wedding or something.
Yep, way into that. That would, that would be exceptional if he walked in on and just started throwing around the groomsmen.
Yeah, a wedding's probably better. A funeral's probably not great in this current environment.
It's more difficult to fight back.
That's true.
It was cool.
Yeah, I really liked it. Made Lance Archer look fantastic. Still not seeing Jake wearing that mask, man. I want to see Jake wearing a mask. Anyway, next up we had. Now I feel I need to point out how little I know about wrestling. Last week you brought up this match and basically said if you don't know these wrestlers, you're not a wrestling fan. Well, I'm not a wrestling fan because I didn't. As soon as I saw both of them, I was like, oh, yeah, they look kind of familiar, but I'll get you to sort of fill in the backstory because you seem to know who these guys are. Anyway, we had Diamante versus Eva Lise, who was making her AEW debut. Were these guys both on Impact? You seem to have a bit of knowledge on Impact. You seem to know who they were last week.
This is one of those incredible live moments where I wish that we were recording this instead of live streaming it to the internet, because that was just a joke I was making. I've never heard of either of these people. And so I thought, I was like, this is...
all week I felt bad. I was like, man, God, Matt knows so much about wrestling. I've got to up my game. I only watch 7 shows a week. I should probably start watching. I've got to watch more Japan. I'll watch Japan. Maybe I can watch AAA on Twitch. I'll watch that as well. I felt so bad that I didn't know who these girls were. Diamante has wrestled on Dark before, though, right?
Yes, yeah. She's been around. I think Invalise has as well. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah,
it would have been really cool to have a promo or a video package so we could get to know these people and care about this match, which I didn't really it was fine, but I would have liked to have the reality of wrestling is that unless it's incredibly innovative, usually you want to care about the case. It's the same with UFC. You want to care about the people, you want to know about them before the match, so you can actually invest.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I liked this match. I thought it was a really sort of hard-hitting, fun match to watch. They gave him a bit of time. It felt like it was a 6-7 minute match, so you could sort of see what was going on. Hikaru was there, and they sort of pointed that out a couple of times, like, oh, Hikaru should have kept, checking out the opposition. So there has been a bit, there has been some criticism, and I think it's kind of harsh considering the pandemic is going on, but of female wrestlers showing up, wrestling, kind of being made to look like a big deal, and then you don't see them again.
Yeah.
So I can't remember her name, but the magician, she's got the magician gimmick, and then she was taken off by the Dark Order. What happened to her? That was 5 weeks ago. So I just sort of hope that doesn't happen with these guys, because they both look like they've got potential to be like sort of just badass female
Yeah.
wrestlers.
Yeah, they were both good. This was a perfectly fine match.
Yeah, just more promos. AEW. Like if Uncle Tony's listening, I'm probably the same age as Tony. I shouldn't be calling him uncle. It starts to sound a bit sexual when
you
two
can have
people the same age are calling him
you can
Uncle
have
Tony.
uncles that age. It
They're
just
the same age. Yeah, that's true. That's true. TK, just some more female promos. One a week, you know, that doesn't involve Vicky Guerrero. Next up, we had the Dark Orders 5 versus Hangman Page. Just quickly before we get into this, because I know you're not a huge fan of the Dark Order, so we'll probably try and run through this really quickly.
Yep.
I think we were talking last week about how sort of confused the booking is with the Dark Order. And I was sort of saying, I think there is something there, but it's been all over the place. And even just the way that 5 was billed, the Dark Order's Alan 5 Angels. It's so confusing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, hang on, why is he... But don't all these guys, aren't they just numbers? But this one's got a name, and then sometimes those other two don't wear masks, but they were wearing masks this week. There's no continuity with it, and like, if you're going to do something like this, you need to commit. And immediately, like, I've got to say, JR, the bad boy, he was on his best behavior tonight until this happened. Essentially until the Dark Order appeared, and then he started burying it like almost immediately. And that's part of the problem. You know, it feels like none of the wrestlers are really committing to this. And also like the commentators aren't, and one week it's one thing and then the next week it's another thing. And there were bits of this that I actually enjoyed, like, you know, Adam Page having to take on the Dark Order on his own, and the best friends coming to his aid, and but it's those, you know, it's those little things that get sort of forgotten or ignored, or if they are being done on purpose, they're not explained to us. So you just start to get confused, and you know, you drift out.
Well, I still just have this like massive problem with the fact that like they're named by numbers. There's 5. There's the Exalted One. There's Evil Uno. Oh, there's Stu. Hi, Stu. I'm just. It doesn't. What the fuck has Stu done to get to be Stu?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and his surname's Grayson. Like, just call him Grayson. That's way cooler than...
Just call him anything but Stu. It's
a number. Like, if you're going to call one of them a number, cool, you know, like, there's 5 and 7, but then there's Stu, then there's the other two guys who don't wear their masks, and they keep popping up on BTE doing comedy skits. It's so confused. And then, like, you know, Colt Cabana was there, and then, like, this week he still looked confused. You know what I mean?
He's
and
obviously not watching the shows.
No, but I mean, him looking so sort of like lost and confused here looked weak to me. Like, it's just like, well, what are you, a fucking moron? Like, you're either... Yeah, okay, you like the last few weeks you've been like, oh, okay, well, I'm winning and I like that, but these guys keep beating up my friends and I don't like that. So I'm a grown man. I'm going to have to make a choice at some point of like, am I in this group or I'm not? Or, you know, Brody Lee has the ability to just mind meld me into being part of the Dark Order. But you can't just shove him out there and have him be like, ooh, and then Brody Lee like sort of hurry him off like he's Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. Like it.
And then he's like, what happened then? And Brody Lee, they should cut backstage to have Colt Cabana be like, hey, why are they? And he's like, don't worry about it. And he's like, but is something going? No, we're just getting the jump on the traffic.
Yeah. But I think that's way better than what actually happen. I like the bad guys all coming out and trying to attack the good guys, especially Adam Page. Made him look really strong that he could get basically all of them on their ass at some point.
They're building Page in such an expert way. Like, it's so good that they didn't give him the title when everyone sort of thought they were going to make him the first AEW champion. Like, he's way, like, he now, like, if he was to win it now, you'd be like, yeah, this guy's massive and major and I want to see him. It's not a Roman Reigns scenario.
No, he's done the work and he's got over, you know, on his own. I think, you know, Roman, when he gets back, you know, just go full CM Punk. Just do a promo on Vince and then go out into the audience and drink beer. That's what wrestling fans love. If you drink beer,
just like CM Punk.
No. The beer part is Hangman Page. Like, cut a promo on Vince, that's CM Punk, and then go out into the audience and drink beer like Hangman Page.
Instead, what's going to happen is he's going to come back 3 weeks before the Royal Rumble instead of being a surprise addition to the Royal Rumble. It'll make it really obvious he's going to win the Royal Rumble, and he's going to win the Royal Rumble. Anyway, let's not talk about them, please.
No, I don't want to talk about those guys. Anyway, yeah, so this is probably the only part of the show that I still enjoyed it, but I'm almost at the point with the Dark Order where it's like, get your shit together and work out what the story is or drop it.
Well, that's the thing. Scientology is very, very successful. And so, like, they're not really following that particular path, are they? And the thing that really caught me about this, and it's bad that this is the thing that I was most engaged with, was that when FTR came out before Kenny Omega to support Hangman, they gave him a beer at the end.
That's right.
But that means that they came out with one beer. Like, it wasn't like they were drinking beers. It's like they're getting him drunk for some reason that is maybe a bit iffy.
No, there were other beers in the cooler. They ran out and had the beers in the cooler and threw the cooler at the Dark Order guys.
I completely missed that. I thought you just
went all over the ring. So
that's all right.
Beers went all over the place because at the end they picked one up and just handed it to Hangman. But yeah, they didn't pick up a couple themselves and have them. So it just looked weird.
It did seem very much like, oh, come on, just have a drink. Don't worry about it, man. Just have a drink.
It was a very arsenic and old lace for a really cool hip reference. But just that sort of like, drink it like a Bond villain. Like, drink up, Mr. Bond. You know?
Yes.
Like,
you can't...
very keen to drink this beer.
You can't retcon Hangman Page's difficulties with alcohol to be FTR's fault. And I hope that's not where we're
going. No, I don't think so. Although that has really sort of just stopped, right? Everyone's just gone, well, that's Page.
You know, I mean, he drinks at work. We all have someone in the office.
On BTE this week, because they were kind of like following up on Kenny Omega's heel turn, but then he sort of turned face again on BTE, which again, like, they've kind of got to show this stuff on the show because then, like, in this segment, Kenny shows up. He shows up late, so Hangman Page is like, "What the fuck, man? FTR were out here before you were." But if you were watching from last week, you'd think, "Oh, is Kenny going to come out here and hit FTR or something?" But it's like, no, it's good Kenny. Well, when did he turn back into good Kenny? Oh, it happened on BTA.
Yeah.
It's a very small criticism because you can work it out pretty quickly. They're like, oh, no, he's normal Kenny. But I don't know. I just was like, even if just you got one of the commentators to say, Kenny went and apologized to Marco during the week for his actions last week. That's it.
But then he was a bit of a dick to him after it.
Oh, yeah, he was because he was like, loser.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, like, I mean, I agree AEW needs somewhere between 9 and 10 hours of television a week.
No. God damn it, no. Learn from the mistakes of others.
I refuse.
yeah, anyway, look, I enjoyed the whole thing, and I'm looking forward to the 5-on-5 match next week. Every time Orange Cassidy walks out, I literally pop. So, yeah, he might be my favorite wrestler.
Oh, hold on.
Might...
You've like jumped ahead a match.
Oh, I have. Sorry.
Which is really interesting because I have no notes about
Oh,
this.
that was at the end of this match. God damn it.
Yeah.
I've scrolled up and forgotten that I've scrolled up. Next up, we had Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus Kids is not a real dinosaur, versus Jake Hager and Chris Jericho, the GOAT. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't have a huge amount of notes for the actual match itself. Luchasaurus impresses me every time I watch him wrestle. Jungle Boy has just a good face level of. He's not blowing me away, but I enjoy watching him wrestle every time, and he's got a likable face, so when he comes out, it's like, it's Jungle Boy.
Yeah.
Luchasaurus did a double roundhouse kick, did a roundhouse kick where he kicked Jake Hager and then Chris Jericho. That was probably the highlight of the match for me. Just in the sense of like, Jesus Christ, look at that.
Yep. I think the match itself was perfectly fine. Like you watch them all, and you're like, other than Hager, they're all great to watch. Like Jurassic Express in front of a crowd are going to be massive. Jericho, I think, has a great career ahead of him. And like it was fine. Like it obviously would have benefited from not having Jake Hager and instead having Sammy Guevara, which was sort of sorted.
Yeah, so Luchasaurus was about to go for a chokeslam, and Serpentico.
In Australia we say serpent, but they are like, for some reason they're like, so we would say Serpentico.
Yeah.
But they're saying Serpentico, which makes it sound so much more like Downton Abbey. Like they're like, Serpentico comes up, and you're like, what?
Ladies and gentlemen, Serpentico has joined stage.
What's a Pentico?
Because he popped up last week on Dark, I think. So we'll get into this in a sec, but essentially he jumps in, helps the Inner Circle beat down on Jurassic Express, and then Serpentico pulls off his mask as Sammy Guevara,
which was done really well.
Yeah.
I think we've discussed previously why he was away.
Yeah.
In a purely kayfabe context, it's good that he's back.
100%. There are going to be people that are going to call AEW out for having Sammy back after 4 or 5, 6. It's been 5 weeks, 6 weeks that he's been suspended.
Something like that, yeah.
Which, I mean, they never, AEW never said a period of time. I don't know. I don't really know what to say, but he made a mistake. He's apologized for it. Sasha Banks seems to have forgiven him for it. He got suspended. He had to go and do a whole bunch of training, like sensitivity training. Also had to give a whole bunch of money to charities. So I think ultimately he's probably paid his penance, even though it's gross. But I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it.
Look, I think that in the end, he's apologised to her privately and publicly, and I think that probably and he's done, like, his salary for the last month or whatever's gone to a women's refuge. It's not obviously for me to decide. I don't think Sasha called for him to be cancelled or whatever. I in a kayfabe sense, I'm glad to have him back.
Yeah, I think you know, we hang a lot of shit on WWE. Sasha Banks handled that whole situation like an absolute champ. So yeah, hopefully we never have to speak about anyone on AEW in that light ever again. But I've got a bad feeling that's probably not going to be the case. But yeah, anyway, so kayfabe wise, Sammy was back, and the Inner Circle just immediately looked better with Sammy there. Chris and Sammy did their hug thing that they do, and that raised a smile. The reason why I sort of bring it up is because my initial reaction was like, "Ooh, I don't think I don't think wrestling Twitter is going to like this." But I don't know. I was once the initial sort of shock of Sammy showing up passed, I was like, oh, this would be really cool. So yeah, they're all sort of hugging in the ring, and then Orange Cassidy and the best friends come out to basically help out Lucha Express. Inner Circle head up into the stands, and the show finishes with the best friends and Orange Cassidy sort of goading Inner Circle back into the ring, and the Inner Circle giving the middle finger back to them.
It was cool. It was a great ending, and it leads to like the next week is an unbelievable card.
Yeah, sure. Oh, actually, just quickly, Matt Hardy was sitting in the stands watching this as well.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
They sort of pointed to it 2 or 3 times. So I think that Jericho Matt Hardy storyline is bubbling away.
That'll be fine. I mean, so next week we've got, and I quite enjoy doing picks. I hope other people enjoyed listening to them. We've got Omega and Hangman versus the Dark Order. I'm going to go with Omega and Hangman on that one.
Yeah, but there'll be some sort of yeah, they'll win probably through a DQ. The Dark Order getting involved, FTR getting involved.
Well, I mean, it could be. I mean, who knows? Like
carrying that story on,
they could very well. You know, we don't know what version of the Dark. Like it could be Colt Cabana and Brody Lee. At which point things get a bit more like, who knows?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I would be really into that.
Sheeta versus Diamante.
Ooh. I don't know. I've got a feeling they're going to push Diamante, so I'm going to say Diamante.
I'm going to stick with Sheeta. I really like Sheeta.
Yeah, me too. But there's nothing. It's not a title match. There's nothing really riding on it, so you can give this newcomer a.
Is it not a title match? I think it might be.
Oh, is it? Well, then Sheeta.
I think they've got like. I think they've legitimately got 3 title matches on this card, which is sick. Like this is the 1998 Raw versus Nitro, where just like they're just giving away sick matches for no reason, except for the fact that no one makes money off pay-per-view anymore. So like, why not? Then we've got a tornado tag: Alan and Mox. Sorry, I use slashes, so I sort of just read it as a.
That's cool.
Alan and Mox versus Cage and Starks.
I think Cage and Stark will win. Cage and Starks will win this.
Yep, hard agree. Would be disgraceful if anything different happened. I hope it's Cage pins Mox.
I thought you'd broken kayfabe there for a second.
Under no circumstances. I like that even you think that's kayfabe. The Cody TNT title is once again a question mark. I would appreciate
this week. It has to be question mark from NWA. Right?
Well, this is the thing. Like we've sort of got to pick. Obviously, NWA are letting people wrestle while they're not running. I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't Damian Sandow or Aaron, whatever his name is.
Yeah, it could be. I'm trying to think of his name keeps coming up on Twitter. I probably shouldn't have brought it up if I couldn't remember his name. It's like Warhammer. Is that his name?
I don't know. That's just a game that unpopular boys played in high school.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's like, because he's cut a promo. This guy, oh God, I cannot remember his name. Where he's like calling out Cody, although it feels like there's a few different wrestlers doing that. Thunder Rosa, who is the NWA Women's Champion, called out Hikaru Shida last 3-4 days ago on Twitter.
Oh, that'd be
like
great.
in a kind of nice way, like because Hikaru is also going to do an open challenge, or she's essentially like because last week she did the promo where she was like, I look forward to all comers taking me on, and then Thunder Rosa tweeted out saying, does that go for non AEW people as well? And I was like, Jesus Christ. Look,
Please,
I don't know if this is.
Please.
I just get the feeling that NWA might get rolled into AEW somehow.
God, I hope so. If it leads to Thunder Rosa in AEW, that's great. She is terrific.
Yeah, and you could genuinely, you could have NWA Power as the second show.
It'd be great. It'd be great to watch.
It actually becomes a legitimate brand split, right? Like,
yeah,
I know that my mate Billy, I know that Billy Corgan is like, and Aldous did such a long and arduous job to build up NWA to where it's been, but they combined together. I don't know, man. I think that's pretty cool for everybody. Anyway,
I'm totally into it.
I'm going to go with Sheeta. Is that where we're up to?
No, that was the Cody TNT title match. I'm going with Cody probably winning this, no matter who answers. I don't think it's quite ready to boil. I think they've got a pretty solid plan for whatever is going to happen here. And then we have Chris Jericho, Jake Hager, Santana Ortiz, and Sammy Guevara versus God, who are these people? Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, the best friends, and some piece of shit called Orange Cassidy.
How dare you? Are you trying to fucking Shawn Michaels me to my Marty Jannetty? Like, what's going on here?
I just kicked you through a barbershop window.
Yeah.
But however, that is absolutely not my reference to that. And my reference instead is I'm trying to Lex Luger to your Sting. Yeah, I can't believe I just compared myself to Lex Luger.
Yeah, if you want to be Lex Luger, man, go for it. I'm happy to be Sting. I think the Inner Circle will win this because Sammy is back, and it'll be a big sort of, we run this place. Don't forget it. Now that we're all back together, the family's back together, we run this place. No one can do anything about it.
Yep. I think that seems pretty sensible. Like, they're a cohesive group, whereas Best Friends, Orange Cassidy, Luchasaurus, and Jungle Boy are not.
No, and I think we'll probably almost definitely hear Tony Schiavone say that at some point during the match. Yeah, well, I think that brings us to the end of the. I love this episode so much, man. I'm actually a bit disappointed to stop talking about it, but we have to end the episode at some point. Yeah, so we Matt and I have started doing a WCW podcast. Where at the moment we're calling it WCW Nitro reconsideration, although it feels like a bit of a mouthful. So we'll work it out. But anyway, we're essentially listening to. God, I've got to eat some food at some point. We are watching WCW Nitro from episode 1. Episode 1 is already up and in your feed. I advise you to listen to it. It is heaps of fun. You'll learn all about Pastamania and a whole bunch of other things that you didn't know you needed to know about. And we've got the episode 2 coming this Monday. And we're also recording a Fall Brawl special. So we're going to be doing the pay-per-views that'll drop on Sundays. Just get into it. It's really fun. We love doing it. And people seem to enjoy it. People are actually downloading it, listening to it. Not that people don't listen to this, but more people are listening to the WCW one. So that's awesome. Yeah, you were going to say something, sorry, Matt?
Well, I think it's worth pointing out that yes, there is Pastamania, but there's also Brian Pillman at his in-ring peak. There's the debut of Sabu. There's all this insane stuff that you absolutely...
Jushin from the Liger versus Brian Pillman. That's the first match of the first show.
Hopefully, depending on how into it you are, you did not remember that these things happened, and it's cool. It's way better than we thought. We thought this was going to be sort of funny, and it's cooler.
It is. The way I described it to a mate today is the lower card, mid card is just awesome wrestling, and then the explosion of egos and characters at the top of the card is so over the top that we just have to describe what's happening, and it's a funny podcast.
Yep, pretty much.
And if you're a younger kid, get into it. You might be like, I don't want to watch old WCW Granddad, but it's genuinely, it is it's the dad of AEW. If you like AEW, you should check out WCW because it's essentially AEW's dad.
Absolutely.
There's a weird metaphor, but you know what I mean. Rate and review, tell your friends, follow us on the socials. We're WrestleWolf Pod on all the socials, and WrestleWolf Podcast at Gmail if you want to send us an email to tell us how good or bad we're doing. We'll talk to you again this time next week.